Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
This is your last chance to get tickets to the Canadian Investing in the USA conference. It's happening in 2 days. So that'd be September 14th, 2024. I hope to meet everybody there. We've done a discount on the ticket prices. They went from $150 US to $150 Canadian. So that's about 35% discount just because of currency right now. Free lunch, lots of networking, amazing speakers. Come talk to me. Let's answer some questions. Let's advance everyone's career. Let's do some learning, and I'll see you there at CanadianInvestingInTheUSA.com/conference. Back to the show. Welcome to a new episode of A Canadian Investing in the US with Glenn Sutherland. This week, my guest is Ankur Puri. Ankur, you want to give everyone a little bit of an intro to yourself?
Sure. Hi, Glenn. Thanks for having me on your podcast. My name is Ankur Puri. I am a real estate investor, speaker, and also a mentor. A little bit background about me. I came to Canada in 2010 on a student visa. I was trained to be a chef, so I did that for 2 years, worked in a restaurant for a year. I didn't really like what I was doing, international fees, pay wasn't great, and I always had a passion for real estate. So I started exploring, looking into different courses, what I can learn, all that kind of stuff. And then did a course, did few, meetups, all those things, tried to understand how things work. And finally, I decided to just quit my job because I was like, you know what, if I want to pursue my dream, maybe I should just get on it head on. I do not suggest this to anybody, especially when you have so much debt and you don't have any family here to live in the basement for free. You shouldn't really do that, but I was just way too on fire. So I said, you know what, if I don't do this today, I don't know when I'm going to do it. And that's what really triggered me to quit my job. And then I'm like, let's do real estate. For a year, I tried a lot of things, whatever I could learn from here and there, and every time I got screwed, either from the seller or the buyer. And every time I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Why did I not get the deal? My paperwork is wrong, or the lawyer is screwing it up, or the realtor is taking the deal away from me. And all the full year, I'm like, okay, this is not working. Something is off. But every time I do, I'm learning. And I'm like, okay, so next time when I do this, I got to keep that in mind and then move forward. So I started getting more street smart that way. And then eventually, of course, because I wasn't making money, I was pretty much in a very bad spot. Literally down to like $98 in my account, and I didn't have the money to even go back home. And I was like, I'm not sure, maybe I should run away from here. I don't know what to do. My body's shaking. And then I had just one deal at that time. There was really no money to be made on it, but I said, if I don't get creative, this is my last shot. It was a townhouse in Markham. So I was able to help the seller to live in the property. He was getting foreclosed. And I was able to get an investor involved as well. There was really no margin, but I was still able to make $10,000 on the deal. So everyone was happy. The seller was able to live in the property with lower payments as his interest, as his, what do you call that, rents. So he's not the owner anymore. So from $2,500, he went down to $1,800. So it was good for him. The investor, he got the property around 30,000-40,000 less than the market value. So he was happy because he can hold on to it. He already has a renter, just have to put 20% down. He doesn't have to put no renovation, nothing. And in that transaction, I just signed the deal. I made 10K. So that was my first ever transaction. And I'm like, wow, this thing works. Since then, in my first 3 years, I flipped over 18 properties, netted $1.2 million in none of my own money. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that story of finding a creative. How did you come across this seller that was? I
did all 99% of my deals are private deals.
Yeah.
So they are all off market. They're not on MLS or whatever. So I do a lot of marketing. I got my websites going on. I made a lot of connections with realtors for offline off market deals. Then of course, I did some bandit signs too, but they're not really, they don't really work. They work until somebody calls you, and the person who calls you is normally not the seller, but the city, and that's what you don't want. So that's like hit and miss. You just have to be careful when you put them. If you put it at a certain time, you're okay. But if you just leave them there, then there's a problem. So yeah, there are a lot of ways, online, offline, that you can get sellers to get in touch with you. And that's the best way rather than you doing cold calling, 'cause especially in Canada, I'm sure you know, there's no such list that exists that you can say, oh yeah, this guy's in trouble. Let me call him, let me knock on his door. It doesn't work that way. So yeah, so I made my marketing in a way that the seller is actually calling me, and then I have more leads, qualified leads coming to me, and then I'm like, okay, how I can help the person. And the motto for my business is, the first thing is not about how much money I'm going to make. I want to make sure how I can help the person first, and in the process, if I can make money, then I do that. So.
Okay, so just like for, if we're going to use an example of that first project, or that project, I don't know if it was the first one or not, but like, was it like a Facebook ad that drew them in? Like how did
No, that was actually a Kijiji ad.
Gigi ad?
So yeah, I put a ad on Kijiji, like we buy houses kind of thing, and then if you have any trouble, give me a call. We can close quick, and we buy houses.
Yeah.
Those kind of ads. So I had those ads running. So I think he came through that, and then he had
Oh,
called. He's like, I work in McDonald's. Me and my wife, we have a private mortgage and interest only, and we have two kids, less than 7 years old. And I'm like, oh my God. I said, you know what? When you have the time, let me just come and talk to you, right? So I understood the situation. I saw their house and I sat with them and I said, see, this is where we are. And before going, of course, you do your research. So I did, how much is the market value? At that time, the townhouses were worth 400 once it's fixed up, right? He already had a mortgage of around 350 or 360, something like that. So, and he was behind payments. So there's really no money after you even list it, you can't make anything.
right.
So he knows it's pretty much, he's going to lose it all. And he's like, probably next month, I don't know where we're going to sleep. We're going to be on the street. So I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I will figure out a way for you. And then I said, okay, what strategies can I use so he doesn't have to move from the house, number one. Number two, that I'm like, the investor is going to come in, he's able to make money. And number three, if I'm able to get something out of it. So I did my calculation. Let's say if somebody puts 20% down, how much would be his mortgage? So I want to make sure that his rents are covering his mortgage plus utilities, right? Because he's used to doing utilities. He doesn't have to, the investor doesn't have to pay it. Because it's the owner occupied, or owner is going to be the renter, the seller or the my investor doesn't have to do any repairs either. So I made those conditions with the seller and said, hey, this is what's going to happen. You do $1,800, which is better than 25. Like, oh, if I can get 1,800, perfect. Then I can cover everything. I can put food in my, in my kids. I can provide for everybody. I said, okay, that's great. So I said, okay, 1,800 would be your rent, and there will be no repairs. We're not going to do any repairs because you're already living here, and that's going to cost money. He's like, no, we don't want anything. We just don't want to move from here. We just want 1 year for us to be settled and move away from here, and we will move on within 1 year. I said, perfect. So I said, you know what, if that's the thing, then we will buy it. You be the renter here. We'll take away the mortgage. That way you don't have any debts. Your credit will start getting better in that 1 year also, because now you don't have any debts and you're paying your bills on time. Your credit card debt is going to be taken care of. And then I pitched that to one of my investors, said, hey, this is the deal. All you need is 20% down, and the house is yours. You don't have to pay a penny for a year. So the guy like, well, sounds good to me. I said, yeah, so let's do it. So he got in, he bought the property. After a year, when the guy moved, I think he put around 20,000-30,000 into fixing it, and he sold for 500,000. So he made a good chunk of money on that, around $70,000-80,000 profit in 1 year.
Okay.
So that was the deal, the first one that I did as a wholesale.
Was that the investor's idea right from the start, that he thought he could be able to move up the value, or say that property, like he was getting it for like $30,000 or $40,000 below asking? Was that enough for him, or was it that there was the other upside, or like what was his original plan? Because sometimes the market changes things for people's ideas.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the property was in a good area in Markham. So as of that day, the property was worth around 400.
Okay.
But in a year, because the way the market is, it was going to go for a lot more. And especially because he hasn't done any renovations like the seller. So obviously he won't get the market value. Right. But because my investor, he had to do just minimal renovations, like patching up holes, painting, cleaning up stuff. So he didn't really put too much money of renovating, like putting 80, $90,000 to make it brand new.
Yeah.
He just made it good enough so that it sells really quick, and the market was good for him. So I think it worked out for him pretty good.
Awesome. That's awesome. So you said a lot of stuff off the start. So I want to come back and circle back to the flipping. But
Yeah.
before that, you're talking about quitting your job. And
Yeah.
just because you're like, hey, I need to take action now. Honestly, that sounds like the craziest thing I've ever heard. Right? Like
Yeah.
what would like I'm just picturing like you could easily get yourself in a situation like that seller that just you signed the project and took your commission on it. You could easily get into that situation where you may not be able to pay your mortgage or rent or whatever your situation was at that time. Was there like, did you have like some savings accounts or something? Like what was there anything or
No, see, that's the thing, because I was new to Canada, so I didn't even have a credit limit of like, my credit limit was $1,000. That was all the credit limit I had
yeah.
because I was new. So I'm like, if they're not giving me $50,000 credit, then I can, kind of take out the money or something. The only thing I had was because I was working, and of course, be a very, very frugal. When you really don't have money, you want to be even more frugal to save money because you never know. So I
Yeah.
had savings for like 3, 4 months, So I'm like, okay, 3, 4 months, I'm sure I can kick it off. I'm sure I can do stuff, and I have all this thing. Because the thing that really pushed me to quit my job was after, doing a course and after actually going through meetups and kind of meeting people and all those things. I was still doing the job, but because I was getting enough money to feed myself,
Yeah.
I was like, I can do it tomorrow. It's okay, I can do it tomorrow. So, and I'm like, I was not getting out of my comfort zone, even though it's not like I was making a lot of money, but it was enough money at that time for me to just keep me afloat and that I'm not sleeping hungry. So I'm like, you know what? Big deal. And then every time when I go to sleep, I look at that, all the books, and I did a lot of online research and all those things. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna open the book tomorrow. I'm gonna, do something about it tomorrow. And I'm like, and then one fine night, I was like, okay, you know what? I have to do something. So I literally, this is how it really went down, and which is so bizarre. So I basically created my website. In my mind, I told myself, I'm an investor. I flip properties. I make shitload of money, and I'm gonna quit my job because I have to focus on my business.
Mhm.
I created my website. I printed my visiting cards, from Vista Prints, you can get $10 or whatever it was, and I got 1,000 cards. I said, perfect, looks great, it looks professional, all that good. And then I went for it, and then I went and I was working in the restaurant, basically in Eden Center in Toronto. So I went to the boss and I said, hey, listen, Steve, I'm sorry, but I have to quit the job. And he's like, why? What happened? Are you okay? Do you need something? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, no, it's just that, I have my own business, and I can't, it won't be right for me to do the job because I won't put 100%, I don't want to do that. And he goes like, business? What business?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I actually flip properties. I'm an investor. He's like, since when? And I'm like, 2 days ago. I just started my business. He goes like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I want to do. And he goes like, oh, you know what? Good luck, best of luck. Yeah, yeah, whatever. If you leave the job, there are a lot of people who are ready to get the job. I said, I understand, see, but you know what? I got to do what I got to do. So anyway, so I left the job, and then of course for the first week I was like, oh, I'm a CEO of my company, I'm gonna do whatever. So I'm
Yeah.
sleeping in and getting up when I want, and it's like a vacation. And after 2 weeks, of course, the money goes down, right? And now the money's not
Yeah.
coming in
Yeah.
anymore. And I'm like, oops, wait a minute, what just happened? And then you see, there are always two kind of people in your head. One is do this, one is don't do this. One is caring, and one is giving you hope and stuff. So in my mind, one guy like, dude, you should at least take a part-time job. How are you going to survive? You have to do this. And the other side is, you made a decision. You better stick to it. You better do this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I gotta, choose. I choose. And I'm always like, you know what? If I made a decision, I better do it. It's more like, you just go on the top of a mountain, you spread your wings, and you just dive. The worst thing you can happen is you're gonna go down, you're gonna die, but the best thing that can happen is you're gonna fly so high that you can never imagine where you can be. So I just took a leap of faith, and of course for during that 1 year, because every 2 weeks or month my money was going down because all the expenses are always there. And I'm like, what should I do? Right. And so I stopped looking at it. It was making me more, I used to feel bad about it. Like, I don't have money. What should I do? I cannot buy this. I cannot do that. Um, so it was giving me depression. I said, you know what? I'm not going to look at this anymore and my account anymore. I'm just going to focus on what I want to do. And of course, not like I'm focusing on getting deals and I'm happy. Just every time I'm failing too, because either the sellers are running away or he's not signing the contract or this, or my investor is like, yeah, I'm going to buy, but he would never show up for the meeting. And I'm like, wait, I have a time limit, so the contract is void. Or if I speak to a realtor, oh yeah, I'm going to help you. And guess what? He goes behind my back and takes the listing.
No.
Yeah, and I'm like, seriously? I mean, I thought you're gonna help me out. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, but you don't have a contract. I cannot help you out because I didn't have any contract with the seller. So he's like, it's an open book, so anybody can take it. And I'm like, okay. And there was also a deal where the lawyer tried to take the deal from me.
No way.
Yeah, and he was the seller's lawyer. And the funny thing is, I told him to, put me on the conference, and I'm just gonna be quiet. I just want to listen what the lawyer is saying. And lawyer was basically telling him, "Oh, don't tell him to him. I can give you 5,000 more or something." And then I intervened and I said, "I don't think you can do that." And he's like, "Oh, this conversation is over. I'm out," and he just hung up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, of course I didn't get
Probably his
the deal."
license over that, something like that.
Exactly. But the thing is, I'll tell you this. I've been through so much of stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, so anything can happen. But what that made me do is be more smart. Okay, these are the steps to take. Make sure you have stuff under contract. Make sure your contract is airtight. Make sure it's done properly. All that stuff. So that's how I learned. And eventually, after that, I'm like, okay, so now once you know all these things, you already know if it's going to take a wrong direction, how do you turn it back and make sure you have everything in place. And the biggest thing is you got to build a good rapport with the sellers, right?
Oh,
That's the thing. So that's what I believe is very important.
yeah, no, this is good stuff. So honestly, like I do the coaching as well, and one of the hardest people to get to pull the trigger are the ones who are comfortable, who have
Yeah.
a decent job or a good job or an amazing job, and they're not pushed, like they don't have their back against the wall. Like
Mhm.
you've just like I just heard it in your voice as you were saying it. Like you cut it all. You're like, I got like 3 months to pull this off. I got to move. I got to work. I got to make this work. And it is a common theme you hear in people's stories. Like there's a reason that they have a why, or they have a sometimes it's why, and
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to make it work. You just have to, right?
Yeah.
Something's happened in their life, and it drives them to do something
Yeah.
crazy. So you said that you did that assignment. From there, did you go straight to the flipping?
Yeah, so my first flip, believe it or not, was all the way in Sudbury. Actually, not even Sudbury. It was in Capril, which is 4.5 hours away. I'm in Toronto.
Yeah.
That was my first flip. And because I am a strategic real estate investor, so I always come up with strategies where I can make more money. So my first deal that I did was, of course, no money down because I had investor involved, but the strategy was that I bought the property with a vendor take back on it with a
Yeah.
0% interest.
For how
So
long?
the total, so I'll give you some numbers. So I bought it for 70,000.
Oh,
40,000 was upfront, and the 30,000 was $1,000 for 30 months interest free. So
wait. Did you say no money? You had to put 40 down, right?
no, it's my investor's money. So for me, it's
Okay.
no
So you took on, you took them on as a joint venture? Or you took them
joint
on
venture.
as a
Yeah, that's
pet
what I
part?
do.
Joint
Mhm.
venture. Okay. All right. Just
So
putting this all together in my head.
yeah. So basically, I had an investor with my joint venture partner who brings in the money. And of course, I want to do in a way where he doesn't have to bring in too much money. So
Yeah.
if it's a nobody down for him too, good for him too, right? So I'm like, okay, let me come up with a strategy that can work for us as well.
Yeah.
So I told the seller, "Okay, I'll give you 40,000 up front, 30,000, I'll do $1,000 per month with no interest." And she agreed. I said, great. But the funny thing is, after we closed in a month, she comes back to me and says, "Hey, I need the $30,000." I said, "Okay, listen, I'm in between my renovation. The best I can afford is $15,000. If you want, I can give you 15 and you take out your mortgage of 30,000. We are fine." She's like, "Okay." I said, great. So technically, I bought that property for $55,000, not even 70.
Oh yeah, no, I did the same thing all the time because that they are always it changes. They always change their
Yeah,
mind, want the money, and that's when it's a renegotiation
yeah,
of the whole contract.
exactly.
'Cause
And I
it's
said,
all
sure. And then I think we sold that property for 170. We made around 65 or something on that.
yeah.
And
So okay, 170. What kind of reno did have to go into it?
oh, well, so we did finish the basement. Like, I think she had some water damage, so we finished the basement. Upstairs, we just did some paint job and clean up. We didn't really do much, maybe change toilets and all that. Not crazy stuff. But yeah, in the basement, we basically fixed the drywall. I put in a new kitchen down there, island, stuff like that. Just not crazy stuff. So we just did that, painted nicely, and then yeah, we just sold it.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So that's great. I don't know what it costs, but it sounded like it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, how long did that take? So like, were you doing that at the same time you were negotiating with the other seller, or it came after that, or like what kind of time frames? I'm just trying to figure this out because you quit
Oh,
your job, you got 3 months, you make
yeah,
10 grand, and then you had to do this flips take some
yeah.
time.
They do. So I was doing I do multiple flips at the same time. Sometimes it's three, sometimes it's four, sometimes it's just one, just depends how many leads I can get. So that's how I normally do it. So I think this one, once I got the 10K, then of course I was really happy, like, hey, it's amazing. But then I'm like, I still gotta keep on going. I think within another month or so, I got the next deal. So I'm like, okay, that was in Sudbury, and then I got investors involved. And then after that, I did few more deals. Again, every month or second month, I was getting some sort of a deal. So I'm like, okay, this can work. And if the numbers have to make sense, because now I also have a JV partner, so I have to give him
Right.
the profit margin. It's not just all me. So of course, so the numbers have to make sense for both of us.
Right.
Um, but like there's a lot of other deals that I can discuss with you. Like the other one,
That's good.
yeah,
I guess I got one more question that just popped in my head
yeah,
from the first flip that we were talking about.
yeah,
You did a 15K buyout
yeah.
of the mortgage. Did you go back to the same investor for that, or where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah. So I just told the investor, hey, listen, instead of because the investor was paying $1,000 a month anyway,
Yeah.
I said, you know what, we can save 15K. What do you think? He's like, of course. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, we already had the budget for reno and everything, and even if we had to close at 70 all cash, we would have done it. It's not like we did not have the money.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I told my investor, hold on, why do you want to spend so much money? Let me try to deal with it. He's like, now what are you trying to do? We're only getting a good deal. I said, hold on, let me see. So I spoke to her and said, this is what we can do. She agreed. I said, hey, I don't need 70, I just need 40. He's like, what about the rest? $1,000 a month. This is how it's gonna work. He's like, wow, it's possible. I'm like, everything's possible.
Anything's possible. It's just all negotiating, right?
It's
That
just
way.
negotiating. That's it. So that worked pretty well. Yeah.
Awesome. So is that kind of how like all the deals kind of look? You try to seller finance them, or do you sometimes use a bank, or what? Is it
I
always
don't
kind of
really use any banks. It's all cash. So it's all investors' money. It's all cash. Sometimes it's 150, sometimes it's 700, sometimes it's 250. It just depends on the deal. So the investor will bring in all the money from buying, closing, renovation, carrying, whatever is required.
Yeah.
And then once the deal is finished, after paying all the cost for selling cost, then I give him a profit margin. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. And well, maybe this is too personal. You can tell me if it's too personal. What kind of percentage of the profit margin do you give them?
So I do around 40%. So of the total net profit, I give him 40% of the net profits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which turns out to be more than 2 digits or 3 digits interest rate when I actually try to calculate that way.
Okay. Got a couple of questions here, and they're going to be very similar. If you were talking to someone and they're like, "Hey, I want to replicate this," would you suggest them doing the same strategy, or just quitting their job and going for it?
Yes and no. I mean, it just really depends if you have a burning desire and if you're really so crazy about it that you don't think about anything else. And that's all you want to do. What I have understood is till the time you're not out of your comfort zone, even if what you need is right in front of you, you're not going to take it, which is so weird. It's just a human tendency. And that's why you have to come out of that comfort zone where you don't have any other option. And then you actually start doing what you really have to do because there's no other way out. Let's say if you're in a tunnel, you're in a dark room, and the only place you see a light, that's exactly where you're going to go. But if
Right.
you see pod lights everywhere and there's still a light or outdoor, the light is good, I don't need so much light because, you don't need it. But once there is no light and you see just one light, that's where you have to head. And it's big. And honestly, I think it makes it much better because now there's no more noise, and that's the only thing you focus on.
I like it. And I've done this both ways, right? With using, actually all three ways, using banks, using debt partners like private lenders. I've done it with joint ventures. I've done it with my own money actually too. So I guess I've done it four ways, probably a dozen other ways because all these creative
Yeah.
strategies I've pulled off. If you're gonna suggest someone to go down one of those paths, which one's your favorite? And as a secondary question, which one do you think actually makes the most money?
It really depends on the deal, number
Okay.
one, how it's gonna come out and how much money it's gonna make. The thing is, for me, it's always when the investor is bringing 100% of the money, it makes a lot more sense for a lot of reasons, because I don't have to deal with the bank, I don't have to qualify, right? I don't have to wait for draws to come to me. I don't have to be worried about the last minute things not closing because somebody's not giving or that the lender pulls back or whatever.
Yeah.
Because in my deals, normally what happens is, let's say if I need 500, which is carrying cost, reno cost, and buying price. So all that money is in my account before the closing, right? So I already have the money in my account. So as soon as the deal is closed, I'm on it right away. And I'm not like, waiting for him to give me the reno money afterwards, or I have to submit documents, or I have to show him the work. But of course, I do that anyway. I'm like, hey, come and have a look, see what I'm doing, send you pictures. And it just, right now, my investors, they're like, we don't care what you're doing. We know what you're doing. We don't want to see. And I'm like, but you should see what I'm doing. And I'm excited. I wanted to show you. They were like, yeah, okay, once it's done, we'll come once it's all done. I said, okay, whatever. So it's just a relationship you build, right? And then, so for my investors, a lot of them do have cash, or they just do HELOC, depending where they can get the money from.
Yep.
I just tell my investors two things. Number one, just give me the money that I need, right? So whatever the agreement is. And number two, once you give me the money, please have a good night's sleep. Not worry. So that's the main thing. And and the other thing also is, there are a lot of times that I have actually declined working with somebody or tell them, no, I don't want your money. And I remember this one guy, he had $1 million cash, and he was talking to me, and I was excited to partner up with him. But in a 5-minute call, he told me 10 times how he's going to lose his money or what can go wrong. And I said, okay, you know what? It's great that you have the money, but I'm sorry, I cannot work with you because your mindset is not where it should be or where I want it to be. And I only work with like-minded people, right? And I don't want that bad energy coming into my deal and screwing things up for me, because I have a very positive approach and I know what I'm going and I know what I'm doing. And unless you come up at the same level, it will be hard for us to actually do the deal because we're going to have a conflict, right? And I'm like, I do not want that. So I'm very selective with people I work. So because I don't want conflicts, I want everybody to be on a win-win situation, and their mindset has to be at the same level. So that's why I'm very particular whom I choose to be my partner.
No, that's a great tip. If nobody takes anything else about, which they'll probably take lots of stuff from this one, but if they take nothing else, those initial calls are so crucial, because I have made that mistake and worked with the people who have a ton of money, and it is not worth it. The phone calls you get at irregular hours of the night, and the stress that they push onto you, that doesn't even need to be there. It is not worth it. It is not worth it, because it'll shave years of your life.
Yeah, it is, because at the end of the day, of course, see, my intentions are to make the max and save the max so that me and my investor make the most of the money, right? That's my intention. And of course, and I'm very conservative in my numbers too. Let's say if I tell them it's going to sell for 800, right? And let's say I'm going to tell them you're going to make, like, I don't know, $80,000 on the deal. Even though I know I can make more and we can make more, I'll never tell him it's going to go for more than that price. Because at the end of the day, I would rather look at him and he being happy. Instead of 80, he made 120, rather than he making 75 rather than making 80, right? So that's why I'm very conservative in my numbers. And that's what most of my investors like, because if, of course, they are not dumb, they can see the number, they can do the numbers, everything is pretty open. And they say, your numbers seem to be weird because I can see it can sell for 850, 900, but you put on the sheet 800. I said, yeah, it could, but you don't know the market. Tomorrow, anything is possible, right? I don't control it. You don't control it. There's some other guy doing things which is going to screw up for us. So you know what? Let's just be conservative. If you're okay to make this kind of money at this kind of return, we will do the deal. I want you to be okay with the 800,000 selling price. That's it. Yeah, we could make more, but if we do, you know what? It's a cream. It's good for us. But if we don't, at least we are happy with what we are getting. And that's what a lot of my investors like. They're like, okay, it does make sense, because at the end of the day, we got to be content with what we can get. And of course, Touchwood, so far we've done pretty good in the deal. So they make good money and they're like, oh yeah, we made more. I said, okay, that's great. That's good. Let's party. But yeah.
Awesome. If people wanted to track you down, they wanted to pick your brain or ask you some questions about stuff you're doing or invest or whatever else, how do people find you?
Sure, like you can go to my website. It's www.ankurpuri.com. That's my name. Or they can send me an email. That's connect, CONNECT, @ankurpuri.com. And I will respond right away.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I love this. This is a fun one, right? This is a fun call. I love talking numbers and strategies and being creative. All the stuff I love the most. So great episode. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I really appreciate you having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
That was a nice video. Bye.